Hello, I'm John McBride. Thank you for joining me for a visit to the Ise Grand Shrine. Now, the early modern guidebook I refer to is the Saigoku Sanju Sansho Meisho Zue. It was published in 1853. It's an illustrated guide to the Western Japan 33 Kannon pilgrimage. It starts in Ise with this wonderful illustration of the Ise Grand Inner Shrine and continues along the Iseji Highway of the Kumano Kodo pilgrimage to Nachi, where the first of the 33 Kannon temples is located, and then onwards. I introduce the full Iseji pilgrimage in a separate YouTube on Great Walks of Japan. So please subscribe, and a thumbs up is always greatly appreciated. So allow me to share my screen. So the Ise Grand Shrine, or Jingu, is one of Shinto's holiest and most important sites. The inner shrine is dedicated to Amaterasu no Omi Kami, the sun goddess. The inner shrine is home to the sacred mirror, one of three imperial regalia. The other two are the sacred sword, which is stored at Atsuta Shrine in Nagoya, and the sacred jewel, which is kept at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. When the three come together, they prove the identity of the emperor. Alongside the outer shrine, the Ise Grand Shrine complex comprises 125 Shinto structures in Ise City and its environs. 91 are connected to the inner shrine and 32 to the outer shrine. So a remarkable aspect of the Ise Grand Shrine and associated structures is their complete rebuilding every 20 years. This incredible process is called Shikinen Sengu and preserves the forest husbandry knowledge, the carpentry skills, the thatching skills, lacquerware, metalwork, textile dyeing and weaving, and other skills required to completely rebuild the shrines every 20 years. In my mind, each 20-year cycle represents a generation. A young carpenter will join her or his first rebuild in their teens as an apprentice, will be a skilled mid-career carpenter for the next rebuild in their 30s, be a leader for their third rebuild in their 50s, and a senior advisor for their fourth rebuild in their 70s. They may even see their fifth rebuild in their late 90s. It's a wonderful way to feel the passage of time. I visited the 61st rebuild in 1993 with my tea ceremony master. The very first rebuild was in 690 CE, and it's continued since then. By the time of the 62nd rebuild in 2013, the fresh new building I had seen with my tea master was aged and weathered, and my tea master was deceased. I visited in 2013 with two great friends. My third visit will be in 2033 when I'm 73 years of age. And perhaps then I'll be wondering whether I'll get to see my fourth Shikinen Sengu. In this presentation, I'm interested in visiting some of the related areas to the inner and outer shrines at Ujiyamada and Saiku, and I'll also consider some accommodation options. An important resource for research at Ise is the Sengu-kan, a magnificent museum situated at the entrance to the outer shrine. All of its resources are available online at sengukan.jp. Location and how to get there. Now, the Iseshi is the name of the station you're headed for. It's a little confusing. It's just under an hour and a half on the JR line from Nagoya, or the private line, Kintetsu's Comfortable Limited Express. The route is scenic, traveling for the most part around the Ise Bay and occasionally dipping into the mountains. Kintetsu also serves Kyoto with one change at Yamato Yagi and Osaka Nambu Station direct. Can I suggest you look for the daily departure of Kintetsu's luxurious Shimakaze Premium Express? It costs about $20 extra, but it's an absolute delight to ride and the views are much better. Our first visit will be to Ujiyamada to consider the foundation stories of Ise. Ujiyamada is an easy walking distance from Ise. Our visit is to the mausoleum of and shrine dedicated to the princess Yamato Hime. The mausoleum and shrine are co-located. According to legend, Yamato Hime was the daughter of Emperor Suinin. About 2,000 years ago, so this is myth creating, she set out from Mount Miwa, a most sacred mountain in Nara Prefecture, in search of a permanent location to worship Amaterasu. Her search led her to Ise. A shrine is dedicated to her, and a ceremony for her conducted every 5th of May and November. The shrine is hidden away deep in a forest. It's a small shrine, but it's built to the same quality as the Naigu Ise Grand Shrine, and it's, of course, replaced every 20 years. The most recent rebuild was in 2013, which is the shrine that you see to the right. To the left is the location where the new shrine will be built to replace it 20 years from 2013 in 2033. Its sacred nature is marked by a small shrine and will remain vacant until the construction process begins about 8 years before its final completion. Next, we visit the Saiku, or Abstinence Palace. This was the residence of the chief priestess of Ise Shrine from the late 7th century until the 14th century. The Saiku is located on the approach route to Ise, the Ise Highway from Kyoto, and it's about 10 kilometers northwest of the Ise Grand Shrine. When a new emperor acceded, he selected a new sayo, or chief priestess. Her role was to serve at the Ise Shrine on behalf of the emperor and to represent the role first set out by Yamato Hime. Now, the first confirmed sayo was Princess Oku, 661 to 701 AD. She was the daughter of Emperor Tenmu, and this is factual. Oku served as sayo from the age of 14 to 27. She was excused when her younger brother died, so she was defiled by his death. She wrote 3 poems in the Manyoshu about his death, and I'll present 2 of them here. So her brother secretly visited her in Ise, and upon his departure, she wrote, to speed my brother, parting for Yamato, for Kyoto, in the deep of night, I stood till wet with the dew of dawn. The lonely autumn mountains are hard to pass over. Even when 2 go together, how does my brother cross them all alone? And after his death, she leaves Ise and she writes when she arrives in the capital, would that I had stayed in the land of Ise, of the divine wind. Why have I come now that he is dead, now that he is no more? My dear brother, whom I so long to see, why have I come, despite the tired horses? Now, the Saiku Historical Museum is an excellent resource to understand the life of the chief priestess. The choice of sayo was through divination, using the cracks in a burned sea turtle shell. Divination occurred 3 times before a final decision was made. Sayo were unmarried. After selection, they were isolated in a room called the Shosai-in at the Heian Palace, and later she would move to a temporary palace near the capital called No Nomiya. And after 2 to 3 years, she was moved to Ise. On the day she left for Ise, Sayo would take part in a purification ceremony in the Kadono River, and she would then return abluted to the palace to attend the emperor, who placed a comb in her forehead and said a ritual farewell phrase. The comb was called the farewell comb. She was carried to Ise in a palanquin called sokaren. The palanquin has an adornment which looks like the flower of a spring onion and is therefore called sokaren, spring onion flower palanquin. The current chief priestess is Mrs. Kuroda Sayoko. She is the younger sister of the current emperor and was formerly Princess Nori. She studied kingfishers before marrying a commoner and becoming Mrs. Kuroda. No one underestimates her status, though. She succeeded Mrs. Ikeda Atsuko, formerly Princess Yori, the younger sister of the Emperor Emeritus Akihito. A new Sayo is chosen each time an emperor died or abdicated. Emperor Emeritus Akihito abdicated in 2019. The journey from Kyoto took the princess along the Tokaido and up and over the Suzuka Pass. The journey took 6 days. The Suzuka Pass was one of 2 challenging mountain passes on the Tokaido. This video depicts Princess Nagakonai, appointed Sayo at the age of 8, crossing Suzuka Pass in 1036. She was accompanied by a member of the aristocrat family Fujiwara and had a retinue of 500 people. The aristocrat was Fujiwara Sukehira, pictured here. The Saiku archaeological site has a 1/10 scale model of the original layout of the buildings on this huge site. It also has life-size recreations of the 3 main structures. The structures, the original ones, dated to the early 9th century. The Seiden, or main hall, it was reconstructed 5 times over 200 years from the 9th century. The Nishiwaki Den, or western side building, an annex to the Seiden, where complementary rituals and feasts would occur. The building has larger eaves to the east where the sun rises. And the Higashiwaki Den, or eastern side building, has the thickest poles of the 3. It was used for preparatory duties and as a waiting area. The 1/10 scale model shows the Shinden, or buildings for religious services. They were highly protected with a high wall. The main building with embedded pillars might have had a raised floor, a thatched roof with ornamental crossbeams, as well as katsuogi, roof ornaments on it. It would have looked much like the main shrine of Ise. The model also shows the Nai-in living quarters of the Sayo. The whole complex was huge, with a north-south street grid created over 1,200 years ago. The grid comprises square blocks of 118 meters, 7 east to west and 4 north to south. They're separated by wide streets of 14.8 meters, including their gutters. East-west streets had deeper gutters, making use of the terrain's slight incline towards the east. Some of the gutters have been exposed in the archaeological dig. A pleasant stroll through the site takes you to the Saiku Historical Museum. An impressive mock-up of Sayo's private rooms shows her shielded by screens. She's wearing the 12-layered Juni Hitoe formal attire, and she's speaking with a noble court lady. Since 730 CE, the financial resources employed for the Saiku were part of the national taxes. They were collected as actual goods. Sayo went to the Ise Grand Shrine 3 times per annum, spending 2 days at each of the visits, 1 day at Naiku and 1 day at Geku, the inner and outer shrines. The 10-kilometer procession was an important rite and is reenacted each June. We next visit the inner shrine. Now we'll use another early modern illustrated guide, this one to the Ise Pilgrimage Road from 1853. The Isuzu River is clearly visible in the bottom of the illustration, and the steps down to the right there to the ablution area at the river are clear as well. Today, the Isuzu River is crossed by the magnificent Ujibashi Bridge, which itself is replaced every 20 years. This is the main approach to the inner shrine today. And while some pilgrims continue to ablute in the waters of the Isuzu River, the spiritual crossing of the river is also a preparation. A large natural environment surrounds the shrine, which includes outer woods which supply the sacred cypress used in rebuilding the shrine every 20 years. The pristine forests of the Ise Shrine cover about 1/3 of Ise City, or about 5,500 hectares or 22.3 square kilometers. The most sacred trees are sakaki, hinoki, Japanese cypress, and the kansugi, or sacred cryptomeria. The Ise Grand Shrine and other shrines are encircled by this shinboku, or sacred trees, comprising a himorogi, or divine fence. The approach path displays gifts of sake for the gods. Sake is an important libation and is drunk by parishioners after being blessed in the sacred area and returning to the mundane world. It is an honor for local Mie Prefecture sake brewers to have their sake displayed on the main approach path. Passing under the second torii, we pause for a moment and bow again, reminded that we are continuing to leave the mundane world behind and enter ever more sacred areas of the shrine. Now, notice the straight lines of this torii gate. Perhaps not what you are used to seeing. It is a straight Shinmei-style torii gate, as shown on the left, and is only used when the shrine is devoted to Amaterasu, the sun goddess. All other shrines use the more recognizable curved forms of the Myojin type torii gate. We then come to the Mitarashiba, the hand and mouth purification place along the Isuzu River, pictured in our guide. And nearby is the entrance to the Kazahinomiya Shrine. The entranceway takes you over the Shinmachi River, the Shimamachi River, which is a tributary to the Isuzu River. Now, this shrine was originally called the Wind Shrine after the Mongolian army was driven off in the early 13th century by the kamikaze, divine wind. It was soon elevated to the Kazahinomiya, dedicated to the gods of wind and rain. Shinatsu Hiko no Mikoto and Shinatobe no Mikoto are the two deities worshipped here. The green sprigs on zigzag pieces of paper on the pillars represent ultimate purity and delineate the final boundary of the sacred area. The paper streamers are known as shide, and the whole offering is called a tamagushi, literally jewel skewer, with sprigs from the sakaki tree, a Cleyera japonica, a flowering evergreen native to warm areas of Japan. In the myth about Amaterasu, she hid in a cave when her brother Susanoo, the god of storms, misbehaved. She was enticed out of the cave with one of the three imperial regalia, the Yatano Kagami mirror, which was propped up in front of Amaterasu's cave, perched upon the branches of a sacred 500-branched sakaki tree. I like the fact that the character for sakaki has the radical for tree on the left side and the radical for deity on the right. We finally arrive at the most sacred compound of the Ise Grand Shrine, the Naigu, or inner shrine. Here it's pictured in 2013 with the brand new structure freshly completed on the left, having taken 8 years to construct, and the weathered building revealed 20 years prior in 1993, just before it's torn down, and the precious timbers recycled and used by other shrines around Japan. The renewal process ensures the many trades and arts associated with the building and renewal process are maintained and passed through the generations. Lumbering skills and knowledge of forest management, carpentry and joinery skills, thatching, metallurgy, lacquer, gold leaf, cloth making and dyeing are just a few of the skills that are maintained, as we'll see at the Sengu-kan Museum. The cycle of renewal in Shinto is actually an annual process with annual visits to shrines to pray for bountiful crops, give thanks for the harvest, and renewal at New Year. It was the Emperor Tenmu who decided that Ise should be renewed every 20 years, or so one leading theory goes. If 30 years represents one generation, then in one's lifetime, it is possible to see the renewal about 3 times. Or if you're a carpenter, to apprentice on it once and then lead workmen on it once or twice. One feels the passage of time, the passing down of skills and knowledge. The approach to the third and final torii gate is up a flight of steps, and this is the final location from which we're allowed to photograph. The shrine is formally known as Kotai Jingu and is commonly referred to as Naigu, the inner shrine of Ise Grand Shrine. It is the highest ranked of all Japanese shrines. In fact, it's above the ranking shrine. The Goshintai, or object of worship, believed to contain the spirit of Amaterasu, is contained in this building. It is one of the 3 imperial regalia, the Yatame Kagami mirror. The style of architecture is Shinmei Zukuri. Notice the gold leaf covered heavy decorative logs on the roofline. They are called katsuogi. There are 10 of them, an even number. Also notice the chigi struts protruding decoratively from the roofline. This architecture is based on elevated grain storage buildings. 2,000 years ago, these decorative features would have been structural to the building. Even-numbered katsuogi indicate a female deity, as indeed Amaterasu is. And inward-facing chigi also indicate a female deity. Of course, there are always exceptions to these rules. The patinaed state of the building I photographed in 2022. This is 9 years after its renewal. A model of the Kotai Jingu inner shrine stands in the Jingu Art Museum. It shows the shrine much as we saw it in our illustrated guide, with black and white stones and the east and west treasure houses located behind the shoden or main hall. Just behind the main shrine is the Mishine no Mikura shrine, or the divine rice storage. It is small, but it is the only other Shinmei Zukuri shrine in the entire inner compound alongside Naigu. Ranked 6th out of the 30 inner compound auxiliary shrines, it provides an idea of the grain storage structures from 2,000 years ago, upon which Shinmei Zukuri architecture is based. The emperor visits the Ise Grand Shrine on occasion. The Emperor Emeritus Akihito visited last as emperor in 2019 to inform Amaterasu of his intention to abdicate. You can see the other 2 imperial regalia which he has traveled with, the jewel from Tokyo behind him, and the sword from Nagoya, where he changed trains to come down to Ise, is in front of him. Likewise, Emperor Naruhito visited to inform Amaterasu of his accession to the throne. He was accompanied by his wife, Emperor Masako. The Ise Kaido, or Ise Highway, travels down from the Tokaido, and the final approach to the inner shrine is lined by restaurants, tea shops, and souvenir stores. Akafuku was established in 1707. It remains in business. It serves tea with delicious pounded rice cakes covered in a coating of sweetened red bean paste. It's a delight to enjoy these by the riverside after a visit to the shrine. And if you're tired of the throng among the main street, you can continue your stroll alongside the Isuzu River, the river of ablutions where we washed our hands and mouth at the inner shrine. Next, we visit the outer shrine. It's also described in the illustrated guide to the Ise Pilgrimage Road. It's formally known as Toyo Uke Dai Jingu, or commonly Geku, the outer shrine, and is dedicated to the deity who feeds Amaterasu. It's pictured here in 1993, and shortly after the old shrine has been removed. A model of the Geku stands in the incredible Sengu-kan Museum, which is just at the entrance to the Geku. As mentioned, the outer shrine is dedicated to Toyouke no Omikami, the guardian deity of food. As the model shows, unlike the inner shrine, the outer shrine's east and west treasure halls are on either side of the shoden, or main hall. Remarkably, the Sengu-kan has a life-size model of one side of the shoden, so it's possible to achieve an idea of the vast scale of the building. The Sengu-kan also has wonderful displays of the arts required to build and furbish the new shrine every 20 years. These include the natural dyeing of silk thread for the clothing of the priests, for objects used in parades and festivals, and adornments within the shrines. The natural plant-based dyes include indigo, amur cork tree bark, Cape jasmine fruit pulp, safflower, madder, purple grumwell, and miscanthus grass. And these are some of the textiles produced from these dyed threads. The cultivation of the sacred tree forests is also described, as well as the joinery used in the building. Protection of carpentry skills for building shrines and temples is perhaps the most valued skill that's protected in this Ise rebuilding cycle. The process of thatching is also described. And we conclude by looking at accommodation. So Ise Pearl Pier Hotel is a reasonably priced business hotel close to Iseshi Station. But I like to stay in Edo period accommodation. The Asakichi Ryokan is the only inn surviving from the Edo period. It stands in Furuichi, which in the Edo period was a large, bustling pleasure quarter. It's located down a side street, slightly away from the main area, which was heavily bombed in World War II, destroying the three major large inns of Furuichi. This is because they were used to billet soldiers during World War II, and the US Air Force targeted them for destruction. It's uncertain when Asakichi was established. A map of Furuichi already established it as a restaurant in 1872. Asa is the character for linen, Kichi for good fortune. So it may be that the original owner, Asaya Kichibe, sold linen. It appears again in 1808 in the comedic novel Shank's Mare, or Tokaido Chu Hizakurige. By this time it was Kagetsu no Asakichi, which was a brothel. During the Meiji period, it was known for its unusual three-leveled structure. It had its own stage for performances of Ise Ondo, Ise folk music and dance, and employed about 30 geisha. It had fine views out to Mount Asakuma. And the top floors today afford panoramic views towards Asakuma-san, and you can see Futami-san there. Um, So, as often is the case in Japanese inns today, the dining room, although a Japanese room, has Western-style tables, and the food and portion sizes are just perfect. They feature excellent seafood from Ise Bay and local Wagyu beef. Breakfast is in a communal room and has also perfect portion sizes of salad, fish, yogurt, rice, and miso soup. And the road that passes through the middle of the structures is a shortcut to Mount Futami and Mount Asakuma and was called uh, Oiwaseko. At the bottom of this road is a three-storied earthen warehouse, also late Edo, and is a registered heritage building. The three great brothels of Furuichi were the Bizenya, Sugimotoya, and Aburaya. Pilgrims to Ise would go a little crazy in celebration after visiting the Grand Shrine, and Furuichi was the place where they indulged in celebratory food, drink, and carousing. For many pilgrims, this followed long periods of abstinence and worship, and at one time, Furuichi was one of the top three red light districts in Japan, the others being the Yoshiwara in Tokyo and Shimabara in Kyoto. A famous kabuki play, Aburaya Sodo, was based on actual events. In the play, a 27-year-old doctor goes crazy with love over a 16-year-old prostitute, and twirling his sword around, kills 3 people and injures 6. He commits suicide. The 16-year-old prostitute survives. Ise Kabuki was once considered a gateway to success for many kabuki actors. A small museum outlines the history of Furuichi, featuring the 3 great brothels. On the left here are photographs of Sugimotoya and the food serving trays that they used. Furuichi still stands on the old Ise Kaido highway on a rise, but today is a quiet suburban street. The location of Aburaya is marked with a stone post. This was the Aburaya's Ise Ondo's dancing stage. This is some Ise Ondo. All right, and this stone marker indicates where the Bizenya was located. So thank you very much. It's been great to visit Ise with you all.